inbred and deficient. It is the end of our race.
No, you are wrong. We will honor our fallen, rebuild ourselves at any cost, and destroy those who thought they could extinguish us. We are Viltrumites. We are without end. Either way, we will rebuild our race. The universe is strange. In a way, you've become our savior. Willing or not.
So, Thrag is apparently the last airbender.
Send word to the Fire Lord immediately. The Avatar has returned.
But in all seriousness, I have very mixed feelings about Thrag, not because he's written badly as a character. I have no issues with how he's written, rather that I just find he himself to be quite stupid at times. Powerful, no dispute, no question about that at all, and actually somewhat of a competent leader at times, but still sometimes incredibly stupid and lethally stupid. Exhibit A, his very first policy as Grand Regent, the Purge. I understand he's grieving and blames himself for letting his father figure die, the late Emperor Argal, since he suspected Thedas to some extent already, and with Argal giving him permit to kill Thedas on this suspicion, which he then did not do. He just dismissed this permission to do so. You can understand the immense self-disappointment, the guilt he places upon himself for not going ahead and acting as the Emperor advised him to do. But does this depression and guilt really warrant, one, executing one of your High Council members, and two, having all your people commit a mass self-genocide, which literally halved your population? So much was lost, literally half, and yeah. Aside from the wasted manpower, this ridiculous first policy also wasted the Empire's time, because it took time. I'm not sure if it's necessarily still in line with the comics where it says it took hundreds of years, or maybe not necessarily hundreds of years, maybe a few days at least. Maybe that's the new canon. But regardless, it wasted the Empire's time, the Empire's resources, and infrastructure of their home capital planet. I mean, when Thrag came outside, the entire city in his vicinity was literally crumbling. The policy was also incredibly arbitrary, because Thrag just decided when the fighting should stop. How would he have known when only the strongest have survived, and how strong was he looking for? What does strong even mean to him? No guidelines, no metrics of what strength is to measure outcomes and objectives. Again, what does strength mean? And what's worse, all this is explained due to him being depressed and guilty. He acted all of these things out because he's depressed and guilty and mourning the death of the late Emperor. Which makes me think if he actually meant what he said to Nolan later about how every Viltrumite death leaves a void in his heart. To be fair, maybe he has changed his perspective due to how low their population is now, but still, this is all very bad governorship, to me at least. I mean, I think, honestly, generally probably, government, it's just bad government. And honestly, was this purge really worth it? Sure, it ushered in rapid imperial expansion afterwards, but it also indirectly led to more lethal countermeasures in the form of the Scourge virus, which brought them down to literally 50 individuals. And this honestly justifies what Thedas did greatly to me, at least to me, as what are you going to do if a very existential and genocidal threat rapidly and more aggressively starts expanding? A very extreme and effective measure must be used to stop, if not at least halt their advance, which the Scourge virus did in fact greatly deliver on. And another more contemporary example to his brash emotional behavior and policymaking, and this really made me doubt his decision-making skills, is when he decided to strike at Telescria in the current Viltrumite war. Oh, by the gods, what was even the objective in this assault? Because it really looked like he just sent them there to just hit anything and anyone you see with no actual strategic objective in mind. But even if we give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they just wanted to do as much damage as much as possible to the heart of the coalition, then why didn't Thrag himself participate? Thrag is clearly shown to be leagues beyond the strength and even probably the skill of the other Viltrumites. Look at these feats.
I'm not impressed.
Could he not have done this alone? Could he not have done what Nolan did to the Flaxen homeworld and literally single-handedly decimate Telescria from orbit to its underground? Nolan did it. Why couldn't Thrag, the Grand Regent, the one who, again, I'm referring to his feats, like seriously, and oh no, he orders a sudden retreat because his sentimental skull got knocked over. Seriously. And what did this little skirmish even accomplish but the several deaths of his already incredibly scarce Viltrumites, which was confirmed to now just be 37 members at the end of these 4 seasons, down from the original 50. An attack with no objective, no plan, no grand strategy, and you only ended up with even less of your already very scarce manpower. But when his head is actually cooled and he isn't at the thrall of his emotions, at the thrall of his guilt and depression, he is actually a genius and fairly competent as a leader. After the ridiculous wasteful attack on Telescria, he manages to collect himself and turn the tides, at least a bit, around the coalition, baiting them into what became an ambush. And this is where the coalition themselves started acting stupid, in my assessment. The fight over Viltrum was a bit annoying to me. The entire time, I was literally yelling for Zoe and Space Racer to just aim their guns, their anti-Viltrumite weapons at Thrag. Like, all of you, just put on Thrag and see what happens. Like they originally I mean, isn't that what they originally planned anyway, to just gang up on Thrag as fast as possible and throw everything at him as fast as possible and then deal with the others later? If the coalition team kept with their objective and followed through their original plan, they could have probably just rushed Thrag and probably killed or severely injured him. Then pick off the other Viltrumites later on. This was their original plan anyway. This honestly might deserve its own video analysis of how and what they could have done, but that's what I have to say about that for now. But going back to Thrag, it was a bit surprising to me how irrational he can be, since in previous episodes, he is being portrayed as some kind of a very calm and collected, very rational, very well-spoken leader, be it still fierce and giving off great sense of power, like when he concluded at the end of the very deadly and catastrophic Scourge virus outbreak in a very calm and rational voice that they must seek out other species to interbreed. For speciesists such as the Viltrumites, this ability and willingness to interbreed with others is already a bit worthy of merit, as it goes against the very taboo of what their entire culture stands for. Clearly, a very rational, pragmatic side is present in Thrag's leadership, which is, plus points, very commendable, of course, prioritizing the survival of the species over its cultural pride. Thrag does further demonstrate this rationality when he snaps out of his blood frenzy and spares Nolan and Mark. He cannot afford more Viltrumites to die. So his solution, which was staring him right at his face this whole time, literally, is to, well...
To bang your way across the galaxy?
Yes, exactly. And that is exactly what we see at the end of this season. Them living amongst the humans, and it seems Krieg is already way ahead of the others in that regard. Though Anissa, well, keep your eyes, ladies and gentlemen, on that one in particular. I see you there eyeing up Mark. Speaking of, if I'm not mistaken, she won't be the only Viltrumite we need to look out for, since, as we were informed, not all of the Viltrumites made it yet to rendezvous with Thrag on Viltrum before the battle. Or maybe they did rendezvous with Thrag after the battle on Viltrum. But it doesn't seem like it's necessarily confirmed, since there should have been like 37 of them in the battle, rather than just a few dozen. Anyway, it's not unclear, so some of the other Viltrumites might still be out there and not on Earth with Thrag. And Thrag really has held his emotions now, as Mark in vain tries to strike him with no substantial effects as they meet for terms at the end of the last episode. Again, another show of Thrag's capability for reason. When he's not in a depressive, manic episode, so to speak, on his sentimental skull, I suppose destroying the skull and planet did help him detach himself from that emotional side of himself. So I guess that's some credit to Nolan's plan of blowing up Viltrum, helping Thrag see some type of reason at least, though admittedly not the conclusion, not the reason that they were hoping for exactly. And then at the end, they were installing this detection system, but I suspect that it would have not worked anyway, since Thrag and his cohorts seem to have just flown here by themselves, though that makes me curious how the GDA did not detect them, since they could detect Alan and Nolan whenever, they come in and out of the Earth and nearby parts of the solar system in previous episodes in the previous seasons. So how did Cecil not know that the Viltrumites have already, or some people have already entered the atmosphere of the Earth? That seems to be a bit of a plot hole here. Alright, just a little update. I just realized that Anissa, when she arrived, the GDA didn't even notice that she arrived. She just arrived and then, crash landed on Mark's date with his ex, Amber. So I guess they do have a method, or maybe it's technology, or maybe it's also a method of how to get to planets without getting detected. So there is a means by which they won't be detected, at least by the GDA. So it's definitely possible that they could have gotten to Earth without being detected by the GDA. But it's never explained why the GDA could detect certain people and not others, because they could detect Alan, Nolan, and Invincible and Conquest when they left and came to Earth. Well, in terms of Conquest, again, I think they didn't detect Conquest when he did come to Earth, only when he left. But yes, that's just a little thing I just realized. And lastly, I have to say I'm rather disappointed that they broke up Paul and Debbie, looking like they want Nolan and Debbie to get back together eventually, which I will make a video about, how I am strongly against that. Though I have read comments that the odd choice of focusing on the albino Viltrumite lady may suggest that she'll play a bigger role or some role possibly in the future, and possibly a comment I read said possibly the love interest of Paul. Maybe she will, mate with Paul and take Paul as her partner. And that's pure speculation. Looking forward to more of that Viltrumite albino lady, though. So very interesting. But yes, Grand Regent Thrag. Quite the emotional roller coaster. Literally. A truly complex character having to shoulder an entire decimated civilization empire while dealing with his own intense grief and guilt. Would you agree with my assessment of the Grand Regent? freely discuss down below your own thoughts. Next time I will be making videos about how Debbie should not get back with Nolan. That I think really is a mistake, and an in-depth critique of the Viltrumite Empire based on real-world empires and civilizations in history. But until then, I will be waiting for you, fellow mind, here within mine mind.